There is something that actually made rounds last week, and that was that Federal House member actually receiving 1 billion naira. Senators are receiving 2 billion naira. And most people don't understand the concept of constituency funds. Now, I'd like to ask you, is constituency funds, are they paid directly into your account?
Maybe I should say it's just a product of ignorance for anybody to feel or imagine that any government would give MPs 1 billion, 2 billion to do anything direct cash. I have never at a time been given 1 billion by government.
Okay.
What we do, the way the National Assembly works, is that during a budget year, for the even spread of development across the country, the federal government introduced or embarks on the constituency project.
Okay.
So there's a budget envelope allocated to the constituents. The budget envelope clearly means that this worth of project will be done in your constituency.
Hello, welcome to Clockwise. Today is a very special edition because I have a one-time law lecturer who is now a lawmaker in the Federal Assembly of Nigeria. So now, without further ado, with a resounding virtual round of applause, please help me welcome Honorable Dr. Patrick Umoh. Welcome to Clockwise, sir.
Thank you very much, Providence.
I don't even know where we are going to start from because there are so many issues. And we're going to bring out these issues one after the other. First, let's have an underlying definition of this conversation. Let's look at what the duty of a legislator is in Nigeria first, because most people have a misrepresentation of it. If you ask people, what does a legislator do in Nigeria? There are two different things. People give you different. So what is the duty of a legislator?
Well, first and foremost, the Nigerian Constitution establishes the mandate of the legislature. And so for every parliamentarian, there is an obligation to make laws for the good governance of the country, as established by Section 4 of the Constitution.
Okay.
Beyond that is the duty to perform oversight, which is defined in Section 88 of the Constitution.
Okay.
The third is an incident of the second, which is to undertake to make laws in the event of a breach. For instance, you have the declared emergency situation in Rivers State. That is where you find Section 11 of the Constitution.
Okay.
And then the third is to represent the people, the constituency, the interest of the constituency on the basis of parliamentary conversation. And then recently,
empowerment.
Our people have added empowerment, which is the fascinating aspect of it all.
Now, if I want to actually, should I say, place this thing in hierarchy based on what the people actually perceive to be, I'll place the empowerment first. Because that's what everybody feels, that once somebody wins the election, whether to the House of Assembly, the National Assembly, the governor, empowerment is the basis of judgment. People don't even know that the legislators want to do law. They don't even ask about laws. They don't even ask about contributions and deliberations. So, as you said, you added 4. You added the 4th one, which is empowerment.
No. That's peculiar to our climb.
Okay.
I was privileged to represent the Nigerian House of Representatives in the British House of Commons. We had our conversations around transboundary crime and migration pressure issues. And of course, I met some MPs from the cities in London. We had our conversations, we interacted, we cross-fertilized ideas, and I realized clearly that it's only in Nigeria that
people want
our functions are overstretched, and it's understandable.
Okay.
In the Western world, the socioeconomic rights of individuals, of citizens are guaranteed, and citizens themselves are not entitled from litigating on these actions.
Okay.
But here, it is clearly non-justiciable. It is merely a directive principle of state policy.
Okay.
And so it is every man to himself and God for all.
And survival is...
And so now survival is that of the fittest. So clearly too, our constituents wonder how best they can interact with us,
Okay.
what interface are necessary and probable to make them enjoy the dividends of democracy. Judging from the history, the checkered history of our country, from military rule to the militarization of democracy to real democracy, as we're struggling to experience now. So I met the last component as a member of the National Assembly. Having been sworn in, realized that my people require to empower them.
Okay.
But the perception of empowerment
Okay.
is what I feel we should have a conversation around. Most of our people feel it is about vehicles, it's about fridges, and all that. As good as this may sound, we should also not lose sight of those ones that are sustainable, those ones that can engender self-reliance.
Yes.
For instance, having to do the ICT training, which of course I'm very passionate about. I've been able to train about 40 of my constituents on ICT so they can embrace the market and make money from whatever locations they are. And empowerment too will also further stretch to facilitating employment opportunities from ministries, departments, and agencies of government, which is exactly what I've done. For instance, at the last count, I've done about 38 for my constituents. I've been able to facilitate employment for about 38 of my constituents to have gainful employment in ministries, departments, and agencies of government. About 6 of them have PhDs at entry point.
Yes.
So you can imagine in the nearest future of about 10 years, 15 years, where they'll be. And some have also gone into some very lucrative places of work. I am intentional about the public service because I know there was a dearth in terms of number of persons from my constituency that are employed in the federal government or have such opportunities. And so if you've done that much within just 1 year, 8 or 9 months, I think before I end the first 4-year term, I should, by the grace of God, meet a higher target than that. So I was intentional about it from the beginning. And for me, that's real empowerment because these gentlemen will work for 35 years. And they can put food on the table and even assist others to also have access to such opportunities. I've done some with the private sector, having to empower people to start up small businesses so they can be self-reliant. And gladly too, a lot of them have made some good return on investment. And I salute them. I've incorporated some cooperative societies in cells. That is in circles for people to startups so they can do well. I incorporated a cooperative society for women and I gave a startup capital of 5 million. I did the same for carpenters. I did the same for cyclists. I did the same for some young friends of mine who went around with me during the campaign. So I grouped them together, got a lawyer to incorporate the cooperative society for them, and I gave them startup capital. There are about 5 cells, and they're all growing. Though not necessarily at the same pace, but I dare say the Okada people are doing very well. They have basic returns, and we're partnering with some bankers so that whatever they make at the end of the week, we monitor these things and we add up so you can enhance whatever they are doing. And to the glory of God, they are doing so well. The carpenters came next because I'm monitoring those things. And for the carpenters, I'm really very impressed. And the women, of course, women are very industrious. I'm really not bothered about monitoring the women because they're already established. It was just for me to enhance what they were doing. But for the cyclists and the carpenters, youth that went around with me, they're also doing very well. Some of them are doing it as a side hustle, but then the breathing space is good.
No, I like your idea of empowerment and what it is. I like what you're doing about empowerment. But before I actually go further, there is something that actually made rounds last week, and that was that the federal house member actually receiving 1 billion naira. senators are receiving 2 billion naira. And most people don't understand the concept of constituency funds. Now, I'd like to ask you, is constituency funds, are they paid directly in their accounts? Now, also, are you the one that choose the contractor to do those jobs? Because I somebody recently somebody said that you have to name the contractor you actually choose to actually execute jobs. Are you the one that to choose contractor for the federal government? Was the money paid to your account like your name, Dr. Patrick Umoh, for Ikot Ekpene Federal Constituency, 1 billion naira for constituency? How are constituency for how are they?
You see, it is laughable, and maybe I should say it's just a product of ignorance for anybody to feel or imagine that any government would give MPs 1 billion, 2 billion to do anything. That's direct cash. You see, but I have been a law teacher, so I have a duty to always give orientations when necessary, in the interest of even my colleagues, because we have become very vulnerable, and Nigerians too have become very gullible to negative news. So I owe the populace, I owe my constituents some explanations on this. Now, I have never at a time been given 1 billion by government.
Okay.
What we do, the way the National Assembly works, is that during a budget year, for the even spread of development across the country, the federal government introduced or embarks on the constituency project.
Okay.
So there is a budget envelope allocated to the constituency. The budget envelope clearly means that this worth of project will be done in your constituency. So now the member has the prerogative to nominate a project.
Okay, you nominate project.
You nominate project worth that envelope.
Okay.
And you don't determine even the bill of quantities.
So
as a member, all you do is you know that you are from, for instance, I know that I've been doing this kind of thing, empowering youths, ICT empowerment and all that. So what do I need? I needed to build a skill acquisition center for my constituent. And it wasn't even 1 billion. My budget, the budget envelope for the federal constituency was not up to 1 billion. It wasn't even 20% of 1 billion. It was about 20% of 1 billion. That's about 200 million or so. 213 million. I can't remember the figures because
when do you get the 1
my job is to nominate project, and they bring a form to you as a parliamentarian. Constituency project budget envelope is stated there. I think I can remember the figures. For us in the entire Akwa Ibom, it's about 113 million.
So the whole House of
113, yes. Each person will have 113 because we have 10 federal constituencies in Akwa Ibom. So each person will have a 113 million envelope, million naira worth of envelope.
Okay.
Not cash. You don't have access to the cash at all.
Okay.
That's verifiable anywhere. So the budget envelope is for you to nominate a project within that threshold.
Okay.
So you now sit down and say, okay, what do I do to be able to affect my people positively within these scarce resources? Because today, when they go for procurement, government will take tax from the 113. What is left is intangible. They will take tax from it, administrative cost and all that. And at the end, if they have to do a design for the project, of course, they will pay from the 113. For instance, I did the Skills Acquisition Center. So when it is awarded, of course, monies will be paid for designs. Then the building, the construction will come. And the finishing is part of that. So as a first timer who is entitled to that sum, for instance, what do? What you do is you have to lobby your colleagues, use your committee, run around Abuja to attract things for your people, because that can't do anything. So in my case, if you sum up the things I have done in my first 1 year, you will see that some of the expenses I made were personal.
Okay.
Personal, clearly. For instance, I got into office Between Afara, Ekpene and Okun, there was no light for about 1 year, 3 or 4 months, close to 2 years. And I felt it was a clear need. So I had a code. And so I had to go in to do it. I got my friends, Engineer Nyenime Sobara, Barrister Victor Idiom, and Edidiom to go and do on-the-spot assessment and get people to restore the light. And I paid from my pocket. That's not part because you can't find it. It's not in the budget of the year. So I had to do it because people needed light. And I had so many votes from that location.
Yeah.
So that's how the light in Afara, Ekpene and Okun was restored. I bought the poles, I bought the steel crossbars, I bought the accessories, I bought the wires, and they were stringed. So I funded it personally. It's not in the budget. It wasn't in the budget, but I was excited. I won elections. I won at the tribunal.
Yeah.
And I felt blessed by God. And I had extra code because I traveled out of the country. I was chairing legislative agenda, monitoring and evaluation, and I had traveled wide. So I had a lot of extra code allowances coming to me from my hotels and all that. But I live a modest life, so it wasn't necessary. And I felt I should give back to the people. That's how that light was restored. I went as far as even paying for the outstanding bills so that light indeed can be manifestly restored because it was useless to plant poles, do all that for the 3 clans, and at the end, it didn't work. So that's it.
Okay.
So from the 113, I nominated projects like 6 classroom block, which is done at St. Peter's Primary School, Urare. I nominated another project, which you have as the 2 primary school block at St. Charles Primary School, Uwa. And I did the renovation of the village council hall, or in fact, construction of the village council hall, where I come from, where I voted for myself to even get elected. So, and we suspended ceilings, quality job. And then, of course, if you sum up all that, you see that it will be beyond the money. We donated 15 computers to those who were training on ICT. And that's it. We did solar lights, so much more. Of course, I had to take the envelopes of some principal officers, including my boss, the president of the Senate, including the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Because of the committee I chaired, I had access to leadership. So I could attract things and add up to my budget envelope. And then I also did training on agri value chain for 50 youths.
Yeah.
And then they were paid startup capitals and even seedlings for cocoa. I did for fingerlings. I brought in for 100 young people that were trained and given startup capitals with the accessories for fishing, with the value chain. So some of these things were attractions I got, not just within the 113, but reaching out to other members, especially ranking members and all that. So I've done a borehole somewhere. I've done transformers, 500 kVA transformers for about 5 or 6 locations. Yeah. All of that cannot be within what was statutorily allocated to my constituency. And you are not given cash. You're not given cash.
What you do? Contractor.
Well, some people go as far as trying to get contractors, but it is risky because if you nominate contractor before the budget even comes out, the civil service can even make transfers. So you have no full control of that.
Oh.
And so you can nominate. It's not, of course, people have a lot of ways of doing things. But then statutorily what is possible and feasible is that you nominate your project, maybe nominate the agency it is going to.
Okay.
Some people stretch as far as that, but then at some point it doesn't work out. Okay, for instance, imagine that somebody nominated, let's even say I nominate the University of Umoh, for instance, to do my project on, distribution of educational materials, for instance. And before budget comes out, the vice chancellor is changed. So who will negotiate my project for me?
Okay.
And these things happen. Or somebody is transferred, or somebody is elevated from that level to something else. So you don't have full control of it. And so even if you nominate contractor, you can't be a contractor because you're a legislator.
Yes.
ICPC will come after you. And it's risky to nominate or get the contractor to get involved because at the end of the day, you pay dearly for it. If anything goes wrong, you will answer for it because you nominated the contractor. And so sometimes most of us are careful not to get involved.
Okay.
And then again, the point to be made is that there is no direct cash transfer of 1 billion or 100 million or whatever million to any legislator because it is not possible. No government will do that. No government on the surface of the earth
will transfer
1 billion to you. And then how powerful would I be to keep 1 billion? I become a billionaire overnight. And then So you see, most of the stories you hear, people say, they have been given 1 billion. That's not possible. It is clearly an impossibility. And for any sensible person, nobody should believe such a joke. You see, some people run into social media because they are not challenged. Most of them are jobless. Most of them have nothing to do to engage themselves. So what they do is to castigate people in public office because they are vulnerable. And also knowing that Nigerians are very gullible to accept anything they hear. So for me, it's something to ignore.
Okay.
I saw that my attention was drawn to it by some of my media aides, that somebody wrote a letter to ICPC. I don't owe him such information because I'm a legislator.
Yes.
And as a lawyer, I know my job. And so there's no reason to bother about that because it is just somebody trying to get me distracted. My major job as a parliamentarian is to make laws. And if you're looking at the records of the National Assembly, I have done about 26 bills.
Yeah. Yes.
And I got accolades from United Nations Development Program as having produced quality and qualitative bills. The UNDP, and it was published in the fact sheet. 2 of my bills on constitutional amendment. So it's clearly that I wasn't even a member of the Constitutional Review Committee, but I was invited to be part of it. I was not statutorily a member for Akwa Ibom. It was my colleague Clement Jimbo. But then the chairman of the Constitutional Review Committee reached out to me to be co-opted to be a member, which is because I have done something wonderful to support the legislature of this country. So some of us are not bothered, we are not deterred.
Okay.
And then recently I've been appointed the chairman of the House Committee on Health Institutions. And
I was coming to that.
And if they're talking about 1 billion, then don't bother them. The 2025 budget, when implemented, some of them they will respect us.
They will ask you when you say
because we carry the grace of God for what we are doing.
All right. Now, I've actually seen you facilitate roads construction. I've seen you facilitate renovation of classroom blocks, building of classroom blocks. I've seen you facilitate installation of street lights and
so much. That one is so much. Over 500 million words.
There is something that is so fascinating about the things you've done, and it is your passion for health. Now, I know that you're the chairman, the House Committee on Health Institution. Now, you have this passion for health because I've seen you advocate seriously for federal medical centers. Now, recently I saw where you actually advocating for the establishment of a university, the School of Nursing.
Federal College of Nursing and Midwifery.
Yeah, Midwifery. Why this strong affinity for health?
Well, first, I am chairman of the House Committee on Health Institutions. And wherever I find myself, I try to give my best. Where I come from, in my entire clan, we don't have health quality or qualitative healthcare centers that can cater for the needs of the people. Number 2, we need health workers in Nigeria to be properly trained and retrained.
Okay.
And it is the Federal School of Nursing and Midwifery that can handle that. And for me, my stay in the National Assembly should be marked by a milestone, such as the construction or establishment of the Federal College of Nursing and Midwifery.
Okay.
And it won't end there. By next week, we should be having the committee review or report of upgrading the Cottage Hospital to a federal medical center.
Okay.
That's what I represent. Before the end of 2025 budget implementation, I have, through my office, facilitated the ophthalmology center and the University of Youth Teaching Hospital. It will be built, clearly. I've also facilitated the hostel for university students, the medical students, be properly trained so they can stay there and get trained. I have facilitated the construction of maternity wards for all the hospitals in my constituency, namely Comprehensive Healthcare Center and the General Hospital Ikot Ekpene, the General Hospital Ikpene, General Hospital or St. Mary's Hospital Rakwan, and the Cottage Hospital Kana. So all of them will have maternity wards built and furnished with consumables and equipment. That's because I'm chairman health institution.
Okay.
And it's a grade A committee of the house. It's not supposed to be so. No first timer can have that kind of committee. as a ranking member you could have. So it is the grace of Almighty God. And the surname we carry into the National Assembly. I represent my most prominent constituent, the President of the Senate.
Yes.
So all of these factors affect my output. And people say this, you can't have a father who is a lion and you behave like a goat.
Yeah.
So politically, I am established. And so I must harness all of these variables in the interest of my constituency. And I'm a lawyer. So I should know my onions if I find myself in the National Assembly.
Yeah.
So beyond that, the solar light that will come into the constituency for the 2025 budget will be enough to go around. We are very intentional about what we're doing in the National Assembly. And so some of these loose cannons who express themselves on social media are just idle, and you can imagine why they do so. Some of them are contested against me and lost out. Of course, National Assembly is not a child's place. It is a place for serious business. So when you find people, the gentleman who wrote all that appears to come from my local government. And the last I recall, he came to my office and offered to work with me. But to work with me is not that easy because I must also do my personal assessment. And so I didn't find him qualified to work with me. And I clearly said so. So the next is to start castigating me on social media. It doesn't hold water. It doesn't, because first, the personality is an issue in having to look for a job.
Yeah.
So you didn't have the right personality to work with me because I have a pedigree. And so that was not possible. So if I refuse you working with me or having that level of access to me, you should still give me support wherever you are if you feel committed to your people as you claim. And so it's not something to bother about. What we are interested in is keeping the focus.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay. Now, I can remember when I served in the National Assembly some years ago. And I actually worked in the Procurement as press secretary some years ago. There's something I observed in the National Assembly.
So thank God you've been part of the National Assembly.
Yes.
So let me also interview you. Would you say that these monies are paid directly to you?
No, I've actually had opportunity to actually.
Oh, you've talked about this before.
Yes.
I mean, it's not possible. No government will do that.
That's why I had
No responsible government will give money to National Assembly members directly. I forgot to mention even that as chair of health institutions, I've also attracted ambulances to my constituency, one per local government. So we will identify a hospital of need and send the ambulance so that those services can be provided for the poorest of the poor.
Okay.
That's what we do.
Okay.
And then I've also subscribed for 1,000 constituents in the National Health Insurance.
That's why he said
And I've also done 100 under the Akwa Health Insurance Scheme to partner the efforts of the governor in healthcare service.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing.
Okay. The thing I observe in National Assembly is that the longer you stay in the National Assembly, the more you have more opportunities.
Absolutely.
Because I realize that first timers find it very difficult. You know that you came with the surname, but it's so difficult for you to maneuver through a National Assembly. I realize that people that have stayed 2 terms, 3 terms, like that, they have more opportunity, more reach, more connection, more relationship to actually attract things. It's a personal observation that I had when I was there.
Well, you're right. The old broom knows the corners of the room.
So you're advocating for people to stay longer? Because I feel that people...
I would say that anywhere. We have lost so much because of envy, because of jealousy, because of hypocritical politics. Fred Agbedi comes from Bayelsa. He has been in the House of Representatives since 1999. Nicholas Mutu is from Delta State. He has been in the National Assembly since 1999. Sada Sole is from Katsina State. He has been in the National Assembly since 1999. Ado Dogowa is from Kano State. He has been in the National Assembly since 1999. You can't compare yourself, your constituency, my constituency, with their constituency. The current Professor Julius Yonvere, the current leader of the House of Representatives, has been there. You can't beat the rich. So the best is for us to agree to have ranking members. And if you're not a ranking member, you can't hold the principal of
Yes.
You can't be in leadership. And the budget envelopes that go to such regions are far more humongous than what first-timers can get. God has only given me an opportunity to be this fortunate. But in the event that we don't have all of these factors working in our favor, then it can be very difficult, unnecessarily difficult to achieve anything. So we should jettison who is there and bother about how to send ranking members to the National Assembly so you can negotiate deals and bring back in the interest of our people. Remember when Senator Itanan was there? You can imagine what went to the Umoh Federal Constituency. Remember when Senator Effiong was in the National Assembly? See, the parliament is like a timer. The longer it stays, the sweeter. So we should bother about quality people who can do proper representation in the National Assembly. Not this settlement of stomach infrastructure. We can't go anywhere with it. We are far backward. And so we must strive to support those who are doing very well at the National Assembly. The indices are clear. The number of motions have moved in the House, life-touching motions. I moved the motion for the appointment of more justices to the Court of Appeal. And today we are lucky to have some of our people having that elevation. I moved the motion for the update of Nigerian laws. And to the glory of God, the President has done so well with us and has received presidential approval. And many others. I don't want to list all of them. Is it in terms of bills? Is it in terms of quality? I've given scholarship to so many people. I've paid bursary. I don't want to talk about those ones. I've given scholarship to indigent students. I even gave one from secondary school, and I promised to pay till he finishes university. The son of the deputy chairman of my party in the Seniority who died and left the young children. So that's representation. And that's what I believe in. So I'm humanizing politics in my way. But then the castigations can come because a few persons feel I'm too young, given my age, and that they should do all that they can to cast aspersions and all that. But the Bible is very convincing and consoling. Happy are you when men rebel you and persecute you and utter all kinds of calumny against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. So I'm comfortable.
Amen.
Don't bother about those who talk about 1 billion. Have they seen 1 billion? If they see 1 billion,
No, because
they will sell off the.
I was surprised because how would they transfer 2 billion to somebody's account for constituency?
So track the account is simple. If you feel 1 billion was transferred to my account, it's public issue now. You know my name. Visit the banks, get my BVN, check. If you find 1 billion, I'm not. Glory to God. But you see, I've noticed a thing. Because of all of these 1 billion, 2 billion, I've seen that there's pressure on me from friends, hoping that maybe I have, of course, constituents, friends, colleagues, that we have money.
They want you to share 1 million to everybody.
I'm imagining. so it's
all right. So let's talk.
Unfortunate.
Let's talk politics now. Okay, some weeks ago, you were actually seen at Ikot Ekpene Stadium.
Oh yeah.
Where you openly declared your support for Siwaju, Tinubu, for Governor Hoeno, for the Senate President, and you actually had you have a seconder. Some days ago, the Senate President did the same thing, and it has actually raised some eyebrows. You're a member of the APC.
Absolutely.
People are asking, what is in this APC that everybody is going to? Why is everybody cross-carpeting to APC?
Well, as a lawyer, I know the freedom of association. That's one. And then two,
as a politician,
I know APC is a political party. And three, as a politician, I welcome all to APC.
Because people actually want both the high and mighty, they're actually flowing to APC.
But it's interesting. We're in very interesting times. It's an indication that the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is doing very well. That's why you have people coming into APC. So all thanks to Mr. President for all that he has done for the country. And again, APC offers a platform as against the other political parties. Some of these political parties outside the APC, for instance, the PDP, the YPP, they are asphyxiated. They are looking for how to breathe. They are on life support. And so it is better to be in where you have stability.
All right. Now, in 2 years, in some few days from now, you'll be 2 years.
Yes, 13th of June.
13th of June. And if I don't miss my numbers, I've seen you've given you facilitated like 25 jobs. 25. 25.
Yes.
Okay.
We've done 36.
Okay, 36. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. 36 into different agencies, parastatal of government. That's just 2 years. What should we expect in the next 2 years?
I'm still very intentional. I have a target. I have a target for my constituents at the federal level. It is something that I knew I would do when I get in there. And so that is, for me, the major empowerment I've always wanted. So whatever it will take for me to facilitate my constituents having jobs, I'll do so. We still have so many CVs in my office. So what we do is when there are such opportunities and we get to know, we try to do the facilitation. By whatever means. In fact, sometimes I spend as much as paying transport for them to get to locations. And some are posted to some places that I try to also assist. Those ones are not in Nigeria's budget. They are personal funds.
We're not part of the 1 billion.
Not part of the 1 billion. So we do all of that. And then again, I also feel that there are people who have worked for me, who have been consistent in loyalty, who have supported me right from time, who also deserve the macro empowerment, which I'm going to launch sometime in December, January, either the early part of next year or late December. I'm planning an empowerment for my people.
Okay.
But it must be people that can sustainably manage the empowerment. You find it that everybody wants to be empowered. But some people sell off the things they receive as empowerment items.
Okay.
So we have our team, and we're working as a team to ensure that we do the right thing and we do the needful. Then I'm also floating the football competition to mark my second year in office. Okay. That will take off on the 13th of June.
Okay.
And we also have the choir competition where we'll take the national anthem, the home choice. As any choir can pick any song of choice, and then praise to the holiest in the heights, or praise my soul, the King of heaven. That's my way of celebrating my second year. And towards December, we'll do the empowerment. I will do the grand finale of the competition and the football. And there will be a grand prize. The grand prize is the Godswill Akpabio Prize, which will be given to the best team. That's one way to say thank you to my grand leader for giving me the shoulders to ride on.
You'll not change. You're still the same person you used to be.
I can't ever change.
The first time I saw when
I can only be a dynamic legislator.
I remember the last time during when you was in your first year, you went to actually watch football with some people at Ikot Ekpene
at the plaza.
At the plaza.
Of course.
So people were not like, okay, is it because he just came in?
I was castigated. Somebody even said I bought hot beer. Perhaps because he drank by the roadside. But the point is, interfacing with the people is key. Times are difficult.
Yeah,
I agree, but I am very committed to my people, and I mean real business. I feel for my people. I sometimes I feel like doing everything they would want me to do, but I am limited by circumstances, and so I only believe God that He will give me the capacity to do all that I desire to do for my people. We are 360 members of the House of Representatives, so we have competing interests.
Okay.
And to the glory of God, I think we are doing well. I have taken the name of my constituency to a global stage. I was fortunate to address Chatham House. That's record-breaking.
Yeah, very.
So it's no longer a joke.
You can now call you the global MP.
Well, that's right. Yeah. So that's it. I feel that I should be committed to my people. And
okay.
I'll do so. I'll continue to do so. With God giving me the strength.
All right. I'll take that as your final word. And this was a time with the Honorable Member representing Ikot Ekpene Federal, the Seniority Federal Constituency, the National Assembly, a law lecturer who is now a Federal House of Assembly member. And this is where we'll call it the end for today's episode. And please do not forget that the elite of the 21st century are not those who do not go to school or those who will not go to school, but are those who have refused to evolve as their environment is evolving. My name is Providence. See you again.